All right, a very good morning to all. Apology for being a bit late. And I know the amount of time that we are left it, so we'll try to cover all the interesting points very quickly. Till the presentation loads, thanks a lot to the RE Tech team for having me here, and it's a pleasure and lots of gratitude to be with stalwarts like these on the dais. The topic that we'll be deliberating on today is related to smart grids and the microgrids, which again is a very, very important part as far as we talk about the energy transition towards net zero on the national level. And let me tell you, for all of you who have seen the journey of this electrical and energy sector India is undergoing, we have talked a lot about large renewables, right? So we analyze in very detail, we give it a critical importance when we talk of large solar, large wind parks, and all the major power plants that would come and get connected to the grid. And we are very familiar with the conventional power value chain of generation, distribution, and transmission. Today, we are at a stage where it's not a single directional flow of electricity. So almost at all places, be it the generation, distribution, or transmission, you may find different kind of sources of energy distributed throughout the grid, and that's where there are all bi-directional power flows, and the same consumer who was taking power from the grid might tomorrow give power back to the grid. And we are trailing down till the level of microgrids. So the small setups which are very near to the load centers typically, and you might have a mix of different kind of small renewables or DERs, what we say as the distributed energy resources, and they could be small wind, small hydro, they could be a combination of rooftop PVs, you could also have battery energy storage system enclosures and so on. So it makes the complete scenario very interesting. And just to give you a brief background, I work into power consulting, so we do a lot of power system analysis, R&D, design engineering, and so on for many global projects as well. Coming to the driver, I think it's no new news for us. My daughter is sitting here, and in the past 3 years in NCR, we have seen schools going online because of a heat wave, a cold wave, as well as bad pollution index. So I think all of us here have a very big responsibility to go ahead and start integrating those kind of technologies which are ultimately also sustainable and good for the environment. So businesses today are no more just about the kind of profit and loss, but we are also talking of net zero. We are also talking of energy transition, the kind of carbon emissions that these new kind of technologies would bring along, and how do we see it in a technical, in a commercial, as well as a sustainability perspective is very, very important. So the integration becomes very interesting. And today I think is one of the most challenging as well as interesting times for all of us to be in, because there are new technologies everywhere around us. So every 2-3 years, I think we also have to unlearn and relearn the kind of new technologies that might come up. And when we say this, yes, we very happily agree. Yes, please, let's bring solar, wind, green hydrogen, bulk battery energy storage systems, and so on. But at the same time, let's also appreciate the kind of grid integration perspectives that these may have. And why they become important is because we are talking when the quantum increases. So say by 2030, by 2050, how does the grid look like? India is a huge complex grid with such different demography and such different kind of power generation sources already. So we do have thermal power plants, we do have coal-based power plants, which give us the major inertia, the conventional plants, which are going to be there. We have also added a large amount of renewables into a grid, and then we are also seeing microgrids, which might impact our distribution utilities going ahead. So once the quantum increases, this is something that all of us should be looking into. And as a transmission planning engineer or as a distribution utility planning engineer, it's important for us to look into these aspects maybe 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, and so on. There is a complete evolution of the future power systems where we see new players. And by 2030, 2050, the kind of population increase, the kind of standard of living, electricity is going to be the backbone, and we are going to see multifold increase. So as far as we talk of generation, transmission, it might be 3 times, it might be 5 times the capacity that we have today. So very, very humongous one. When we talk of energy transition, there are various trends that more or less I think we might have heard. So one is of course the renewable, the new kind of technologies that we talked. And when we say that we might have solar, BESS and the conventional. So it's good, let's just mix all the energy resources and they should be fine, right? But every technology comes with its own characteristic and how we integrated it properly into our grid, so that we are no more now talking about just reliability and stability. We also want flexibility and resilience. So when we say this, we started with the mission of power for all, right? Now we are also talking of service levels. We would like to see what's the quality of power, what's the power factor, what are the harmonic limits, what are the kind of accidents that happen, what are the kind of disruptions that happen into the system. And when we say net zero, is it something which some other environment department would look into? No, it is going to come into each and every function that we do. So when we talk of, say, power system analysis, we talk of different kind of faults, right? So as a good relay setting engineer, I would like to have my relay settings in case there's one transformer that goes off, in case there's an insulation failure, how do I define my relay so that the system is stable? Now we are moving towards renewable sources. So more or less they might be IBRs, that's inverter based resources, and they will have limited short circuit currents compared to the conventional machines. So how do you design that power system to sense whether it's an overload, whether it's in short circuit, when do I operate, how much time is okay to support the grid, and so on. And few years back, I think we had a guideline which said about the steady state analysis when we talked as renewable developers. Now the guidelines are revised and we are looking into the true representation of the systems. So when we do the grid compliance studies of renewable developers, we would like to make sure that it's a dynamic analysis. We would like to make sure that in case there's any disturbance, it should not hamper the grid operation in any case. And that's where the kind of harmonics, the kind of relay setting, the kinds of inertia that you want into the system is very, very important. Now, one side we talk about the generation and the different mix of energy, right? Now, let's come to the other side where we talk of the load segments. So, there are few load segments which are, again, new players into the grid. So, all of us have seen pandemic. We have seen the kind of digital transactions that go all around. There are new load segments like data centers coming up. So one is the kind of power requirement that these data centers would have, but at the same time, also the kind of redundancy that they ask for. So there might be a topology where we say we want an N+3, we want an N+4 kind of topology. So what does that mean? We would like to have a main 1 power supply, a main 2, backup 1 and backup 2. So when we talk about, say, Amazon Web Servers, other data centers, we can in no condition allow any power disturbance to happen, right? We cannot afford to have any disruptions in those kind of load segments. Come to the other kind of load segment, the e-mobility that we keep talking about. So all of us know, say, maybe by 2030, the kind of electric vehicles we would see on the road is going to increase. So that sounds good, okay, we'll have electric vehicles and we should arrange the demand for it, right? But how are those vehicles different or challenging when we talk about the utility perspective is because the quantum, the number of people who we expect to come and get their vehicles charged at the charging infrastructure is something which requires a very critical forecasting. When we say this, the population today, the population in 2030, the kind of standard of living, how many people are expected to use 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, In a country like India, somebody in Nagpur might be comfortable using more of two-wheelers, somebody in Delhi might use more of public transport. So within the country, there are different consumer behaviors. There might also be different charging requirements. When we say an electric vehicle, you can have different options of charging, like an ultra fast charging, a fast charging, a slow charging. So somebody is a residential consumer, they are okay putting their vehicle 5 to 6 hours for a charging. But somebody into the elite or the heavy vehicle side, or a fleet vehicle, or somebody on the highway would not afford to wait for that much time, right? So they might go for a fast charging, so that would require more amount of power for that vehicle to charge. And typically, at what time of the day vehicles would come get their vehicles charged, and how is the utility behaving, or how does the grid look like when we talk of the power supply, the demand, and so on. So balancing it is something very interesting that we see, and it is also no more about just the short circuit faults, something wrong with the system that could happen. Now we are also seeing the climate change impact on our fault scenarios. So say in US there was a case where the temperatures dropped so badly that the gas pipelines freezed. There are times where there might be fires in the substations in areas like Australia and so on. So one is we try to add all the new technologies, but we also are ready to deal with those kind of faults which might come with the new challenging climate chaos. And at the same time, the intermittency of this renewable. So at all times we have to see what is that correct mix of different kind of sources of energy which we would like to have, so that you have enough of main power, you have enough of backup power, and the ramp down times of those. So in the older times, when we used to sit in the generator control turbine rooms, we would say there's a load increase, the generator, how much droop setting is what we can work it, is it 3%, 4%, and so on. But with the bulk energy storage systems, what is that ramp up time, what is that ramp down time, what are those kind of control schematics becomes very, very important for us. And then there is a complete definition, different kinds of impact which these new agents could have. And when we talk of storage, or when we talk of new kind of technologies, very important to understand what is the application that we are talking about. Is it a rural feeder? Is it some critical infrastructure that we are talking about? And which source of power makes a good application is very, very important. There are various aspects of integration of these DERs into the grid. So say you may have a hosting capacity analysis. So tomorrow we say that Delhi is a smart city. How many charging stations do we estimate should be added into the system? What is the overload or the cushion capacity available? What's the bottleneck sensitivity kind of analysis, and so on. So all these are interesting perspectives that we could again go with the kind of substation capacity, what's an augmentation that needs to be done, different trends, at what points do they connect to the grid, and so on. And then there are also many kind of simulation tools that we have started using, because as I said, it's no more a steady state analysis. So one side you will have a load with different kind of possible scenarios. At the other side, you will have renewables, which might again have different possibilities of penetration. So we are talking of thousands and thousands kind of repeated calculations over the time period. So that's where integrating it with the GIS, coming out with those results. The different important grid compliance studies. So you might like to see that how it is helping the grid, how do the harmonics look like, what are the voltage current bands that you have, the power quality, the dynamic stability aspect of it, and so on. So all this maybe we can again discuss some other time in detail, where you also have voltage ride-throughs which are defined for renewables. So it would typically say that in case there's some disturbance into the grid, this is the amount of time for which a renewable plant should be able to sustain that voltage, and it should stay connected to the grid, not causing any disruptions. the different kind of applications, and this again is a very important part where we are also working on anti-islanding detection. So when we talk of microgrids, you might again have a microgrid, say, which is connected to the grid, or you might be operating in an islanded condition for which it is designed. In case there's something wrong with the grid, isolate yourself, but keep the other part of the network alive, right? So in those cases, once you're connected to the grid, the fault levels are going to be very high. Once you go into an islanded operation, the currents are going to be less. And how do we ensure that the islanding of that relay happens within the required time, as well as there's no spurious tripping? It shouldn't operate for an overload as well. So that's where we try to calculate the equivalent Thevenin impedance. We try to see what's that kind of jump that the system would see in terms of impedance. And then the kind of network, there could be different kind of generation sources, distribution, loads connected, so it's dynamic. There's no one setting which could work. So how does that ratio look like? What's a good ratio to enter into our islanding algorithms? What is that kind of sampling rate we would like to take? For how much time the relay should measure? Keep that memory, keep it comparing, and when an actual islanding occurs, are we able to meet the system redundancy with operation of the same, and so on. And the point of highlighting this is trying to establish that when we talk of different kind of technologies, we should also look into the integration perspectives, that once they are there into the grid, what are those special characteristics? What can we do to ensure that they operate correctly, and so on. And that brings me to the last slide. So in the different stages, there are different kind of feasibility, planning analysis, lot of perspectives that you could deliberate on before the actual plant is set up, before the actual grid connection happens. So this is something which is going to help us a long way. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. So thank you for being an attentive audience. Any questions, please let me know. And Regis sir, over to you. I hope I was able to maintain the time.